Hey guys, this is my class evaluation starting in Module 1. Module 1, we learned all about the ethnic and cultural backgrounds and the varieties throughout the women of color and queer women of color, and how they all pretty much went through an experience and still do experience a privilege and oppression that they all go through. We learned about how they all experience some form of race or oppression, racism or oppression, and how some may have experienced the racism of wearing blatant or wear covert or others experience the unaware and unintentional or unaware and self-righteous. But still, after decades and decades of it being marginalized and them experiencing it, I still kind of find it weird that we learned how they kind of just they experienced it all, and they let them get to them and batter them spiritually and physically to the point where they believe that they deserve the oppression and racism that they're getting. They don't fight it. Well, I mean they fight it, but like they kind of just say, yeah, we understand that we get it, and we know we deserve it. Um, and we learned how privilege and oppression can only just be fixed, by saying, "Oh, we recognize you. We see that you guys get it. So we love you now. We accept you. Here we are. We're gonna fix it for you." We can't really do that. It's a real lack of representation for these women in big cultural places, and a lack of representation where privilege and oppression can be stopped, and opportunities are present. um, the diversity doesn't necessarily mean equality. So, even though there might be diverse in a company or something, it doesn't mean it's equal in the power of the company. In Module 2, we learned how historically women were a social group that experienced oppression and inequalities as well. Way back when they had no voting rights, no right to own land. But now there's the women movement are challenging the oppression and inequalities a lot. But black women were feeling very marginalized, and how the studies were conducted about how women of color and queer women of color all have overlapping identities, like their race, gender, sexual identities, nationality, religion, and abilities. Um, and those all contribute to women having the same experiences that they do with oppression. And it comes back to the whole intersectionality thing that we learned, the interlocking identities of women, queer women of color and women of color, um, and how intersectionality is a process of looking at identities as a whole and together instead of just an individual. Um, but women of color and queer women of color don't focus on one aspect of their life. They focus on them all. They always talk about the gender, race, ethnicity, and class. They don't just focus on, like sexuality or the race or gender. It's all one through, intersectionality. um, we also learned how, to gain power, these groups are starting to actually have a voice through a lot of areas, music, poetry, art, political, comedy, TV stars, all these places are making a huge step for these women and queer women of color, and they're the counter narratives of the narrative that we've all come to know. They're redefining the queer politics and identity for these women throughout their crafts, and hopefully they keep doing it, making bigger steps and bigger steps. In Module 3, we kind of learned about how they have an umbrella thread of unity that they come together and stuff. Um, they all merge from their voices, and it's how they can no longer ignore racial and ethnic identities. How queer no longer just means lesbian or gay. It means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, two-spirited, questioning, asexual, and intersex. I believe is all of them. Um, and we also learned how the textbook explained that the National Women's Studies Association in the conference in 1981 gave birth to the realization of the women's movement and how they were being marginalized. And the conference actually formed a new organization the National Alliance for American Third World Women, and how that organization represents a similarity between and the group of women and the third world country women of color and queer women of color being opposed. Um, and it means that they're really starting to challenge all these oppressions and moving forward and really starting to get out there and shifting to new terrains and stopping the use of the identities of the queer women of color and women of color from being the dominant powers that define themselves and moving towards more of letting who they are and what their responsibilities are and what they can come to define them. Um, we also learned how these women don't home means something different to each of them. Some of them living in communities means, connection to very low economic class, low money, anger, helplessness, but to others, it's a means of just generational help, being informed with their grandparents, extended family members, all that kind of stuff. But for others, um, they just don't fit into their communities. They don't like being there. They feel neglected. They feel rejected. And they just feel like for who they are, their community doesn't like them just for that. And even some women experience, physical and emotional violence associated with their identities because of, they're queer, they're just a woman of color, and they're kind of just they think of their homes as a structure that they sleep in at night, and they don't, it's not really a home. And I personally think that's really wrong, and that needs to change a lot. Um, in the module 4, we learned a lot about how the queers are starting to, or sorry, how the women of color are queering the borderlands and their decolonization of it. From Emma Perez said, the decolonial imagery and how that theory works with the same concept that they're transferring everything that they come to know into what is forming them. So they're transferring the real property from the bodies that they through laws, customs, and moralities, and it lets the woman of color rethink who they are. It lets the women stop thinking of who they are from history and start thinking and defining themselves as who they are now. And it encouraged them to push against this colonial mindset that defines social norms regarding race, ethnicity, gender, gender, ethnicity, and sexuality. It lets the women of color and queer women of color utilize this thing called the third space and imagine a new space for who they are and create somebody that they want to be. It lets them see who they are now and help them move to where they want to be and stop letting history define them and let them define themselves now. It really is a power shift in dynamics of how women of color world culture view themselves and how they are starting to see themselves, and it's making a real push to help their society. Um, but that's my class evaluation. Hope you guys liked it. I really like this class, so thank you very much. Have a good day, guys.